Miner's lady, stranger to blue water, dark, dusty, and painted on the sky, Appalachia stretches from the northern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia to the southern parts of New York State. West Virginia, older than the trees but younger than the mountains, is the only state to lie entirely within the region and is the cultural and geographic epitome of Appalachia. It's where we're lucky enough to find ourselves today, here on the Morgantown campus of West Virginia University. But Appalachia and West Virginia have a problem. Over the past decade, West Virginia's population has declined by 3.2%, more than any other state in the nation. These 60,000 odd young people, professionals, and minorities are off seeking what they perceive to be better opportunities in what we know to be more progressive states. Now, this statistic, this finding, this datum, this quantity is initially derived from qualitative perceptions. Perceptions, however, that we know have been measured time and time again. More importantly, though, these perceptions have been reinforced by those who have never lived here. Stereotypes abound in a great number of the young country optimists boarding planes and trains and automobiles for the big city and the opportunities therein. Unfortunately, an equal number to the much less cheerful stereotype of the backwater, illiterate bigot living in our hills. These perceptions are reinforced by by those who have never lived here, and they have been studied by several institutions across Appalachia. A study from the University of Tennessee, itself in Appalachia, asked what Appalachians say about themselves. It found 5 primary cultural barriers that prevent or otherwise afflict young Appalachian rural high school students assessing their post-secondary plans. Extrapolating and contextualizing, we can apply these perceptions, these concepts, to our everyday lives and the decisions that we make therein. 1, the bootstrapper mentality. West Virginia's isolation, be it geographic or cultural or economic, has created generations of young Appalachians who only know to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and push forward as though nothing had ever happened. In the face of what we know to be a debated, defunct, and discredited logical fallacy, our young people are drilled to be self-reliant to the point of personal and professional exhaustion itself, which is then considered a malady that can only be overcome through sheer force of will. We continue with positive future mindset and practical disconnect. Odd, perhaps strange, we are to pair these two things together. Positive future mindset on the one hand, practical disconnect on the other. On the one hand, you have optimism, and on the other, folly. Excitement, naivete, hope, and faith. When you have generations of young people just coming to the table for the first time to make decisions and impact differences and create change in their lives and their communities, they're left with the consequences of the decisions of others. Concerning coal or college or life down the mountain, these decisions are made by those who have had power for generations and refuse to acquiesce to the call for change from millions of young Appalachians. We continue, especially, understanding how harmful these perceptions are when we consider our region's lack of urgency. Number 4. These perceptions, though they are cultural, have been found to be defunct. Business and policy groups like the U.S. Department of Education and the WVU College of Business and Economics have found that, at least quantitatively, opportunities exist for Appalachians. But we know life is old there. And so when you have these decisions that have been made, you have these feelings that because times have been tough, that better times are right around the corner, or that they will be weathered regardless all the same. Providence dictates that all we must do is wait, and we will see our fathers and brothers and friends climbing that elevator up out of the ground, up out of the mind once again. Continuing, though, to our final perception, localism. Ironically, this one feels a little closer to home than most. It's not a new concept that West Virginians are inherently proud people. For them, for us, pride itself is something inherently to be proud of. It comes from a place of shared adversity. And so a mix of that pride of regional isolation and the uncanny fact that Appalachians will know and wave to everyone that they pass going down the road has resulted in what was once described as a bottoms-up, practically oriented way of looking at today's biggest policy dilemmas in which communities can and should address solutions to their own particular problems. It's a very independent way of looking at our community and policy issues of today. If the bootstrapper mentality dictates that West Virginians and Appalachians are going to overcome their problems and the problems of our region through sheer force of will, then localism dictates that they plan to do it alone. More personally, though, localism for me describes these notions, these abstract thoughts of home, of community, of family, and of a responsibility to, or a duty to, thereof. If the first four concepts that we discussed, that we outlined, describe what it's like to leave West Virginia, localism describes what it's like to actually live here. Being Appalachian means being part of a great duality, part of pride in the face of struggle. And that's pride in self to overcome one's struggles in community. It's easy to assume that someone who moves or someone who leaves is then assigning that struggle to those that stay behind, placing it squarely and solely on their shoulders. That's wrong, though. It's easier still to dichotomize West Virginians and assume that these choices are made by individuals individually, to group and categorize West Virginians as either those who stay, those who struggle, or those who move. Being Appalachian should not mean being a choice, a yes or a no, a 0 or a 1, someone who stayed or someone who left. Being Appalachian should not mean having to pronounce it correctly every time and never say Appalachian. It should not mean having to fight your community and those from either coast about what it means to be Appalachian. It doesn't mean having to fight yourselves. Because again, if that fight continues to encourage our young people to leave, it falls to those of us that remain to pick up that banner, and it continues in a cycle. But of course then, if it does not fall to us, and if we leave, if not us, who? Thank you.